Welcome to Lookouts and Waterfalls in the Blue Mountains, Episode 7, Let Our Videos Be Your Guide. In this episode, we make our second trip to Lawson to visit Ferry Falls, Dante's Glen Falls, St Michael's Falls, and Fredericka Falls.
In this episode, our first stop is Ferry Falls on the north side of Lawson. We have followed the M4 motorway from Sydney to Lawson, where we turn right into San Jose Avenue. That is 35.3 kilometres along the Great Western Highway from the bridge over the Nepean River. If your vehicle has a trip meter, set it to 0 as you exit the highway into San Jose Avenue. At 84 metres, turn left into Badgery Crescent, then at 140 metres, turn right back into San Jose Avenue. At 280 metres, turn left into Park Road. Then at 700 metres, turn right onto a dirt road and stop at the end of the road. The track leads to the north.
These are the roads we took to get to the start of the walking track. This should go to North Lawson Park. Got a car, is it?
Yeah.
This is not going to look good.
You wasn't expecting that, were you?
I couldn't see because of the muffled branches. Find somewhere to park and some shade. Done. Today we're at North Lawson Park, about to walk along the track that takes us first to Ferry Falls, then St Michael's Falls, Dante's Glen Falls, and lastly Fredericka Falls.
Now that sounds like a bit of a walk. We better get started.
Ferry Falls, Dante Falls, then Dante's Glen. What's this Dante's Glen, Ferry Falls? Oh, they're just times. They're not in walking order. And we're not going to Empire Pass, so you can forget that. All we're going to do is go up here, down to Ferry, Dante's Glen Falls, St Michael's, but we're not doing the Empire Pass track to Fredericka. We're not doing that. We're going to come back down here and come in this way. Anyway,
Yep.
Let's go. From North Lawson Park, we will follow the track north for approximately 120 metres. We turn right onto Dante's Glen walking track. At 190 metres, we will take the side track to the right for a total of 240 metres to Ferry Falls.
Do you have a history of these falls?
I do, and as is often the case, there is a story to be told. I mentioned briefly in episode 6 the two parks called Santa Cruz and San Jose, and they were originally named in 1876 by Jose Guillermo Hay, who owned all the land in this vicinity. He was born in Chile, South America, and came to New South Wales in 1858, where his name was anglicised to Joseph Hay. For 10 years his two parks' names were retained, until in 1886 Surveyor John Deering reported their names as South and North Lawson Parks to the New South Wales Surveyor General. Ferry Falls are located on the eastern edge of Dante's Glen, within Ferry Falls Creek, on the tributary of the Blue Mountains Creek. In 1879, 3 years after he arrived, and while in the employ of the Lands Department, Joseph Hay had the falls name gazetted as Cecilia Falls, possibly after Cecilia Hay, the wife of his brother, Adam Alexander Hay. However, some say he named it after Saint Cecilia, since he named 2 other falls in the area after saints. In the Australian Star newspaper of 1894 it is written, "Here the eastern stream falls over a ledge of rock to a depth of 40 feet, that's 12 metres, and becomes lost amid masses of fern and bush plants. A few paces further on, the Sebastian Falls are reached. These descend a depth of 90 feet, 28 metres, on to the water-worn boulders below, and into a narrow, winding channel that leads downstream." In those early days, the continuation of the falls just 3 metres further down the creek deserved their own name, given by the landowner and parks trustee Joseph Hay as Sebastian Falls, but later maps and photos referred to both falls as Ferry Falls, inferring that the 2 drops constitute the same waterfall. You might remember in episode 3 we visited a fall in Woodford that was originally named Ferry Falls, but was changed in 1939 to Hazel Falls. Well, if these Ferry Falls had retained the name Cecilia Falls, there would have been no need to change the other fall to Hazel. How or by whom the name Cecilia Falls was changed to Ferry Falls is not known. It may have been renamed by Surveyor John Deering, or through the influence of Dr. Charles Badham, who arrived in Sydney in 1867. I'll speak more on him when we reach Dante's Glen Falls. That's a big drop off. Yeah, huge. Over that edge there, that's Sebastian Falls.
Right.
There's only like 8 metres between them. That's a huge drop compared to that. Here's a photograph of Ferry Falls taken by David Noble. Our second stop today is Dante's Glen Falls, and that's still further along this track. This is Dante's Glen walking track to Dante's Glen Falls. Driving and walking directions can be found at the end of this episode.
This is another short downhill walk, and the track in places is hard to walk. Who named this fall, Graham?
The story of Joseph Hay continues with Dante's Glen Falls. In January 1880, Mr. Hay, the trustee of the two reserves, San Jose and Santa Cruz, named the parks and avenues in Lawson. He arrived in Sydney in 1856 from California. As early as 1880 and 13 years after his arrival in Sydney, Dr. Charles Badham, a literary scholar who took the chair of classics and logic in the Sydney University, was a keen lecturer on Dante. He made several public dissertations on the subject. Was he responsible for the name changes, or did he inspire the individual who did? There remains today street names in Lawson that show Hay's influence: Mary Street, Christabel Street, St. Bernard's Drive, and San Jose Avenue. There are also streets and waterfalls that he named that have been changed by other sources of influence. In 1886, San Jose Park was renamed North Lawson Park. Santa Cruz Park is now South Lawson Park, and Christabel Glen and Falls were changed to Dante's Glen and Falls. Santa Cruz Avenue became Falls Road, then Honour Avenue. In 1893, Hay left Lawson for Western Australia. Was he disillusioned by all the name changing? And although he did not seek it, what of the credit for all his work carving out the walking paths on his property that are now reserves in the Blue Mountains? I got a rainbow. I actually videoed a rainbow. How's that? And I'm getting wet. Now I've got to get onto that rock and then onto that sand. Yeah. Here's a photograph taken by David Noble.
We're back on Dante's walking track, heading to St. Michael's Falls. There are directions to the start of this walk at the end of the episode. This is a short walk, but as you can see the track is well defined, not like when it was sculptured from the rocks in the 1880s. St. Michael's Falls is also on Ferry Falls Creek and situated below Ferry Falls. Graham, do we know how this fall got its name?
This fall is another that Jose Guillermo Hay, known as Joseph Hay, named in 1879, possibly after St. Michael, Archangel of God. Joseph became trustee of the San Jose Park, now known as Lawson Park, in January of 1880. It has been written, after splashing onto the water-worn boulders below, a narrow, winding channel from the Ferry Falls leads to St. Michael's Falls. The track takes you through the glen of Nancy's Fernbower, across a stream on the right, and a few minutes scrambling up the gully brings you to the foot of St. Michael's Fall. This is a photograph of the falls taken by David Noble.
Our fourth stop today is Fredericka Falls, and that can be reached further along this track. We, however, will not be going that way, but will be walking from the other end of the track that starts in the middle of Queen's Road.
This is the eastern end of the North Lawson walking track, which will take us to the side path to Frederica Falls.
We are continuing our walk to Fredericka Falls on the North Lawson Trail with a walking distance of 1.4 kilometres. If you were to walk from Dante's Glen Falls along the Empire walking track through Empire Bluff, the distance is 2.2 kilometres. Another way to walk there is from Dante's Glen Falls via the top of Empire Bluff that joins the North Lawson Trail, but that is a distance of 2.4 kilometres.
If you choose to go to Frederica Falls first, here is a map of the streets you drive to get to the start of the track. What do we know about these falls, Jeffrey?
Fredericka Falls are located on the eastern side of North Lawson Park, Lawson, where the 132 kilovolt transmission line crosses the watercourse. The fall was named after Effie, Alice, Frederica, Chivers, William Roberts, born 1882 and died 1935, the daughter of Benjamin Roberts, who owned portions of land in Woodford and Alameda House and Stores in Lawson.
It is reported that Roberts obtained a publican's license in 1892, and Alameda House became Alameda Hotel, the second hotel in Lawson. 3 years later, in 1895, he transferred his business to a Mr. W. Webster, who immediately changed the name of the hotel to the Grand Hotel. The Grand traded until the 11th of October 1932, when in the early hours of the morning it was destroyed by fire. To this day, Lawson has only one hotel, the Blue Mountain Hotel, that I mentioned in episode 6. This is a photograph of the falls taken by David Noble. We visited 4 places today: Ferry Falls, Dante's Glen Falls, St Michael's Falls and Fredericka Falls. We don't expect you to do all that in one day. Take your time and fully enjoy the outdoors, the sunshine, fresh air and wonderful vistas. But most of all, stay safe by familiarising yourself with the safety instructions at the end of this video.
In our next episode, we drive further into the mountains to Bullaburra to visit a waterfall and a lookout. See you then. Bye.
Bye for now.
Whatever way you discover the Blue Mountains, we want you to have a safe and enjoyable experience. Whether you drive, catch public transport or cycle to the destinations we visit here, some walking is necessary. The walks are usually short but can contrast greatly, so you need to be aware of the risks. Have a safe and enjoyable sightseeing experience at these lookouts and waterfalls. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to be alerted when next we visit the Blue Mountains.